even though whether you are artist, you know.
Oh, I talk about business and science and stuff like that. So I love learning. I think if you love,
Great.
you're curious. Like, it sounds that you're very curious. That's right. I think that is one of the great youth things, keeping you young.
Sure.
Is being curious.
Sure.
I think if you give up being curious and having any projects, then you tend to be giving up life.
Sure. I think the curiosity. In my case, that reading many books in English and in Japanese.
Yes.
That's very good mental acumenity, I think.
It's making so it's kind of spongy, nice and spongy.
Sure.
That's right.
And that I subscribe 4 English newspapers and upload the main headline to upload to my.
Which ones do you use? That's right. Is it the Guardian or the?
No, not New York Times, Korea Times, Korea Herald, and the Chunghae.
So you should pick up a British one. New York Times sometimes a little bit biased.
You hate
something like the
you hate the American.
No. I think I'm very fond of our American cousins. I spent some time in America and New York, but I feel sometimes their press can be a little bit biased. You know, some of it in Britain as well. The Times often is a little bit conservative in its viewpoint.
Before going to London, I was sent to New York to study the Wall Street. And at that time, in 1980, I was sent to New York. When I arrived at the Japanese brokerage company in New York, they commented, "Your English sound like British." So 3 years later, when I went to London, they said, your English is not so good.
Dear. But you had a good head for figures. That's right. It's kind of, actually, you were, what year were you in London?
1983?
Yeah, you were right in that boom period in Britain. Yeah. That was Thatcher years, but also very unpleasant years for many. Many of the working people, like miners. But for like the Wall Street, the brokers, people in the city, they were doing very well.
And at the time, I had stayed at the boarding house. The Korean boarding house, and they didn't provide lunch on Sunday. So at the time, I was not a Christian at the time. So I thought, if I serve Sunday, if I go to the church, they will provide. So I went to huge size of church. Inside there, there was no Christian.
That's quite funny. There's lots of Korean churches in London. Yeah.
The station
I don't
number
know
is
then. There may have only been one or two. Nowadays there's a lot. And there's a big Korean town in New Malden. So my daughter stayed there for a while. And she was at school in Britain. So she would stay in the Minbak at the holidays. Which one do you get off at? Which station?
Well, Sangbong.
Sangbong.
Yeah, because I drop by at the traditional market for buying dish.
Sangbong sort of a traditional market?
No, Sangbong to the Tenung. Line 7 to Tenung.
Gwanjan market.
Pyeongchang Market.
Yeah, Ulujiro 4. But that's quite
Yeah, it's a huge market.
That's quite
but it's very crowded.
Yeah,
I hate to go in
You
there.
don't like that. I remember I have a funny story about that one. Is, I had a suit made there, because I wanted a kind of Scottish kind of check tartan suit made there, and made the suit beautifully. I picked the material perfectly, and he put these terrible buttons, really like almost green fluorescent buttons, and I said, kind of spoiled the effect, So I said, unfortunately, there's a great button market, So I said, I knew exactly where to go. Because I got this leather, really, because traditionally they're leather buttons, right? And he said, oh, that's quite funny. So it was quite useful for that. Is it Danchu? Danchu buttons. Great. Fantastic buttons.
You sound very humorous.
Sometimes I am. Actually, one of my students in my advanced class said, I noticed that all of your issues, even though they're quite serious, they have much humor in them. Like even death.
I think
That's why we're talking
there's
about.
a talent, I think.
That's right.
That's a talent.
Actually, one article I was looking at was, do you know Alain Delon, the famous French actor?
Died.
Yeah, died recently.
Yeah.
He wanted to be buried with his dog, right? But the thing is, his dog was alive. And they said they had to kill his dog in order to bury him. But this caused a lot of fuss. So there was this good discussion, so it's quite funny. Everybody chatting. Should the dog die on Mars? In medieval times, or maybe Choson times, or in medieval Britain, they'd be buried with their dog or their horse. Not nowadays, though. Animal protection. So funny. Wow, you always come quite a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, newspapers.
There's the newspapers.
Yeah,
Here we
and books. I always lots of books.
Oh, so you do some reading.
Yeah, reading.
Wow. Wow, it's certainly an alternative lifestyle.
Sure.
Oh, getting back, what happened to the wife, the ex-wife? Did she get married again?
I have many good friends,
Right.
and I don't get married again.
Oh, you didn't
It's
get
a serious mistake, I think.
Oh, you think it would have been nice? No, it was all right. What? Getting married was a serious mistake.
I think the liberal law is the best choice.
It's almost Buddhist like. Why is not?
But I meet them very different women.
I see. So a little bit of was it a playboy? Yes, that's.
Because I have language power.
Yeah.
Usually Korean ladies are very attractive, good speakers.
Right.
I think you'll be very
And
popular.
Japanese as well, maybe. Did you ever think about a Japanese wife?
I don't like Japanese people.
You don't like that?
Yeah. Yesterday, I attended the Japanese church after the English worship service.
Right.
Usually, I tried to interview Japanese lady. They said no. One Japanese young man said no. They are very conservative.
But they don't usually just say.
Yeah.
They don't say no. They say no in a very roundabout way. I don't think it's quite be appropriate or something like that. Yes. I've never heard a Japanese person say just no. It's always like
It is very difficult for us to understand the real inside it's very big contrast between Japanese people and the Korean people. Korean people are very direct.
I mean, I had an ex-girlfriend, Japanese girlfriend, for 2 years. Yeah, she was interesting. I really loved her, but she was quite passive-aggressive. She would, if something was wrong, she'd never say what was wrong. You had to kind of figure it out, like telepathy.
The station number is K122.
Some years ago, at the Lotte Cultural Center, at the department, one British instructor said that he stayed in Tokyo over 10 years, and he came to Korea, the second destination, to teach English, and he was very surprised. Big contrast. Japanese people are very polite by appearance, but to talk bad things.
A bad mouth.
Sure. So, but Korean people at the subway, even though stepping on, but they don't say sorry. But in the course of understanding Korean culture, Korean people are more friendlier.
I agree. Sometimes I think I often liken it in Britain to Scottish versus English. Southern English, the south of England. Not so much north, but north and Scotland, they're much more friendly, but they are very direct. But I mean, there is also indirectness when you don't know somebody. But it's kind of funny. Yeah. So you visit Japan quite often?
No.
Not really. So you learned Japanese during the war period. Yes.
Not. I never learned.
You never learned it there.
Yeah. When I was sent to New York, we did a Japanese brokerage company.
Oh, you had to learn that.
In New York, I picked up Japanese language.
Because I thought during the Korean, wait a minute, no, it was, you'd have to be pre that, sorry. Yeah,
Sure.
If you'd born maybe 10 years earlier, you would have learned Japanese.
Sure, yes.
Because my father-in-law, he didn't like it. He had to learn Japanese. But there's very much a pro-Japanese feel with the government now. Do you think? Yeah? He's quite fond of the Japanese, your president. I think his father has something to do with
왼쪽입니다. 정추행선으로 갈아타실 고객께서는 이번역에서 내리시기 바랍니다. 이 역은 한곳과 전동차 사이가 넓습니다. 내리실 때 조심하시기 바랍니다. 국내 86개 명문대학에 함께하는 사이버대학, 한국 열린 사이버대학교로 가실 분은 1번 출구로 나가시기 바랍니다. The stop is Mabu. The station number is K121.
When reading Japanese materials, they are separated from the huge land, so their idea is not open-minded. Usually, they say, isolated from the.
And it will be quite more centered in the past.
Sure. Yeah.
Which creates problems in social things like the economy. Because that mentality goes into. What was interesting is I read a study about, now I think it was in Hokkaido. It's a very interesting one. It was on the BBC. It was saying how geography can really affect mentality.
Sure.
But it's
prisoner of geography.
Yeah. But the most interesting thing was that many samurai families, when there was the breakup, ended up in Aikido, right? And it was interesting, their mentality, the way they looked at life was more individualistic than much more mountainous kind of area was more individualistic than actually the mainland Japanese. So it's quite interesting looking at it. Because they have these little tests, you know, like, okay, they'll give you like 3 things. They'll say train, track, car. And they say which 2 go together. Now, in Asia, most people will put train and track together. Because the train goes on the track, they're connected. White Americans, the Western, they will go car, train. Because their language is much more, well, our language is much more individualistic. It's all about me. So it's not like, like we, I am.
The station number is
Our way.
K120. The doors are on your left.
Rather than
Sharing.
Okay. Anyway, it's very pleasant meeting you. Yes.
Well,